It's funny, when a computer program breaks down, it's incredibly polite about it.
Oh, totally. It just stops.
Right. It stops, it throws a neat little error code on the screen, and it basically tells the developer exactly which line of code caused the whole system to crash.
It's clean, it's objective, and, completely devoid of emotion.
Exactly. But when human beings break down, or like when our social lives crash, there is no error code.
No, unfortunately not.
We just kind of find ourselves staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., completely overwhelmed by this messy, tangled web of our relationships and our careers.
Well, I've been there.
Right. But what if you could debug a toxic ex or like a massive career failure using the exact same logic a software engineer uses to fix a broken website?
Which sounds crazy, but that is our mission for this deep dive.
Yes. Today we are merging a 2,500-year-old Buddhist text with the highly pragmatic, maybe slightly cynical worldview of a modern system architect.
It is a juxtaposition that sounds completely absurd at first, honestly. But the sources we have today reveal a deeply interconnected philosophy.
They really do.
On one hand, we have texts detailing the Mahabharata, which is the deepest Buddhist framework for the absolute laws of causality.
Okay.
And on the other hand, we have this fascinating collection of Q&A scenarios from a persona known as War.
And War he's a fascinating character study all on his own.
Oh, absolutely.
According to the text, he's described as a lazy sage and a, quote, dimension architect.
Right, dimension architect.
Professionally, he is a senior full-stack architect. So he builds these complex database structures. He's fluent in modern coding frameworks like Svelte. And, he works a lot with AI prompting.
Ray modern, very tech-heavy.
Very. But he also underwent this really profound spiritual awakening, which actually included intense training as a forest monk.
Which is such a wild combination of skills.
It really is. So he approaches life's deepest existential dread the exact same way he approaches a software bug. And he looks at, rigid societal traditions and just dismisses them as bloatware.
Bloatware. I love that. He essentially applies the rigorous, unsentimental logic of a programmer to the completely chaotic landscape of the human experience.
So if you're dealing with annoying coworkers or a quarter-life crisis or even questioning the nature of reality, this is going to give you a radical new framework for debugging your life.
But to understand how this works, we really should start where War starts, which is the surface-level bugs.
Right, the everyday stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to see how his system architecture mindset processes just like normal, everyday social friction.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources provide some incredibly relatable scenarios. Take the wallet forger.
Oh, yes. We all know someone like this.
We really do. You
Yeah.
go out to dinner, the bill arrives, and suddenly their banking app has, mysteriously crashed, or they, quote-unquote, forgot their physical wallet.
How convenient.
Right. And they ask you to spot them, promising to pay you back, which, spoiler alert, they never do.
Never.
So worst solution here isn't to get mad or start an argument. He just cheerfully looks at them and says, "Oh, my app crashed too. Let's just sit here and wait until your app works."
It's so brilliant. Notice what he is doing there. The instigator expects one of two inputs from War.
Okay, what are they?
Well, either quiet compliance, where he just sighs and pays the bill, or an emotional argument. But War provides a null response.
A null response. But wait, isn't just sitting there staring at them incredibly
It
passive-aggressive?
feels like it would be, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it would create an agonizingly awkward standoff at the table.
Oh, it definitely creates a standoff. But the discomfort belongs entirely to the instigator. War isn't being passive-aggressive. He's just maintaining his system's integrity.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when someone manipulates you, they are trying to offload an emotional burden onto your hardware. They
Yeah.
want you to feel the guilt of ruining the dinner or, the awkwardness of calling them a liar.
So he just refuses the download.
Exactly. He simply refuses the download. He reflects the absurdity of their own bad input right back onto them, which forces them to process the awkwardness that they created.
So it's basically like error handling in coding. He doesn't get emotional. He just returns an error message that makes them deal with their own bad code.
That is a perfect way to describe it. And that dynamic pops up again in the 11 p.m. weekend boss scenario.
Oh, man, this one gives me anxiety just reading it.
Right. So you're trying to relax on a Saturday night, and your boss texts, "No rush, but could you just look at this for Monday?"
The dreaded no rush caveat.
Right. And War offers two paths here. You can either instantly video call the boss, making it intensely awkwardly urgent,
Hmm.
or you take the purely pragmatic route.
Which is what?
You put "do not contact outside work hours" in your profile and completely ignore the message.
Wow. Okay, so in both paths, he just strips away the passive aggression of that no rush phrase.
Precisely. If the boss genuinely meant no rush, then ignoring the message aligns perfectly with their stated parameters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if they actually wanted to interrupt his weekend, the immediate video call forces them to admit their intrusion. They have to experience the friction of managing an employee at 11 p.m. on a Saturday.
He is just relentless with this. He does something similar with the toxic ex scenario.
Oh, a 2 a.m. text.
Yeah, it's 2 a.m. Your phone buzzes with a text from an ex who treated you terribly, and it says, "I miss you, thinking about our old days."
That's classic.
And War replies with absolute ice. He says, "Come over right now or I'm going to sleep."
And he just calls the bluff entirely.
Totally.
Because late-night texts from toxic exes are usually, well, they're fishing expeditions for emotional validation.
Right. They just want the ego boost of your attention without, like, the commitment of an actual interaction.
Exactly. So by demanding immediate physical presence, he shuts down the emotional loop.
And he also handles the freebie seeker this way. You know, that distant acquaintance who suddenly messages asking for easy, free coding work?
Oh, just a quick favor.
Right. War just sends them a direct link to Claude AI and tells them to have fun.
It's highly efficient.
It is. But, okay, applying an error code to a bad date or an annoying coworker is relatively easy. What happens when the system failure is, like, your own identity?
That is the real test.
Yeah, how does a programmer fix a collapsed ego?
Well, that is exactly where War's logic scales up. From minor script errors to massive internal system failures.
Okay.
The sources detail a scenario where a friend pours their soul into a project for 6 straight months, only for it to completely fail.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, and the friend feels utterly worthless, viewing the entire endeavor as just a massive waste of time.
And, I mean, from a traditional standpoint, it was a failure, right? The project didn't launch, or maybe the client didn't pay.
Sure, traditionally.
Hmm.
But War completely rejects that framing.
How so?
He argues that a truly worthless person wouldn't possess the capacity to try for 6 consecutive months.
Oh, wow.
Right. To War, the dedication itself was the success. He is radically redefining the output.
Because society conditions us to believe that the output of a project is either, like, financial gain or status or some kind of external validation.
Exactly. But War looks at the raw data and concludes the actual output was the demonstration of willpower and focus.
Okay, I like that.
He sees that as a permanent upgrade to your internal operating system. The external market's reaction, that's just noise. The internal upgrade is the true metric of success.
It's like a computer program crashing, right?
Go on.
Well, the user sitting at the keyboard panics. They think the whole machine is dead. But the developer knows it's just one specific application that crashed.
Yes, exactly.
You just force quit the frozen app, clear the cache, and the core operating system is still perfectly fine. It's ready to run a new program.
And the core operating system being your mind, your resilience, your capacity to learn.
He uses that same reframing for the bankrupt identity scenario, too.
Oh, the businessman.
Yeah, a businessman loses his entire company overnight. He's deeply depressed, claiming he doesn't know who he is anymore without his business.
Which is such a common crisis.
It really is. And War steps in and points out a critical piece of data. He says, you built it once, which means you possess the algorithm to do it again.
Right, the business was just one specific iteration of the code running.
Exactly. So War gives him a new title. He says, you are a storyteller now. You have the lived experience of both the rise and the fall.
War is actively dismantling the human tendency to over-identify with our outputs.
And this philosophy is really tested deeply in the quarter-life crisis scenario.
Oh, this one is so relevant today.
Totally. A 25-year-old is paralyzed, drowning in career options, terrified of making the wrong choice, and ruining their life.
And Ward's advice here is deeply counterintuitive for a culture that is just, obsessed with hustle.
Yeah, he tells the 25-year-old, don't choose. Stand still. But wait, standing still sounds like a fast track to long-term unemployment. Like, if you don't pick a lane, you get left behind.
It sounds risky, sure,
Yeah.
until you understand his concept of the lighthouse.
What's a lighthouse?
Yeah. Society demands that we constantly move, treating motion as a proxy for progress. But War prioritizes meaning over blind action.
Okay, I see.
He argues that if you focus on cultivating your skills and maintaining your own integrity, you don't need to chase opportunities like a ship hunting for a port.
Right.
A lighthouse doesn't run up and down the shoreline, right? It stands absolutely still, rooted in its foundation, and allows the ships to navigate toward its light.
That is a very structural view of life. And it's perfectly illustrated in the jealous sister scenario.
Oh, the social media trap.
Yes, a younger sister is endlessly scrolling social media, just spiraling into depression because her friends are buying houses, traveling, securing fancy job titles.
We have all been in that spiral.
Definitely. But War interrupts her spiral with a highly disruptive question. He asks, do you actually want their life?
It's a great question.
Do you really want a 30-year mortgage and the stress of that specific corporate job? He suggests that those same friends might be looking at her, secretly envying her lack of massive financial burdens and her total freedom to pivot.
He exposes the bloatware of societal expectations.
The bloatware.
Yeah, we unconsciously download these desires, like the massive house, the prestigious title, without ever running a diagnostic to see if they actually serve our specific hardware.
Or if they're just slowing our system down.
Exactly.
So we have this highly robust, deeply pragmatic operating system for navigating modern life. But you mentioned earlier that these sources are split.
Right, between War's Q&A and the ancient texts.
Yeah, how does a modern system architect's philosophy map onto a 2,500-year-old Buddhist scripture?
They actually map onto each other seamlessly when you look at the Mahabharata.
Okay, break that down for us.
So this text is essentially the ultimate framework of causality in Buddhist philosophy. It is the pure source code of reality.
The source code.
Yes. The texts state that even if the entire physical universe, the earth, the stars, all matter were completely destroyed, the Mahabharata would still remain.
Wait, how does something survive the destruction of the physical universe?
Because it isn't a physical entity. It is the immutable logic of cause and effect. It is the absolute fundamental law of if X, then Y.
Oh, I see.
The Mahabharata outlines 24 specific conditions, called pakaya, that dictate the existence and interaction of absolutely everything.
And the sources highlight a few key conditions that really bring this down to earth, like the first is hetu, which represents the root cause.
Yes, hetu is the foundation. Think of a seed that requires specific nutrients to sprout, or a fire that fundamentally cannot exist without fuel. Without the root condition, the subsequent event cannot occur.
And another condition is esavana, the concept of repetition.
Right.
The text uses the analogy of water carving a riverbed over time. By repeating an action or a thought pattern, you carve a groove into your mind, ensuring that future thoughts will naturally flow in that exact same direction with far less resistance.
And critically, there is athi and nathi, which translate to presence and absence.
Now let's avoid the basic sun creates day explanation here. How does presence and absence function as a universal law?
Good question. Think of athi, or presence, like a gravitational field in physics.
Okay.
The Earth only stays in orbit because the sun is presently exerting gravitational force. In human terms, certain anxieties or behavioral loops only orbit your mind because of the presence of a specific toxic relationship or a high-stress environment.
Oh, wow.
Remove the massive object from the center, remove the athi, and the orbit instantly breaks. The absence, nathi, creates an entirely new set of conditions.
So this is where the ancient philosophy and War's modern coding mindset perfectly align.
Exactly.
Moore operates his entire life using the logic of the Mahabharata. When a problem arises, he just ignores the chaotic surface symptoms and hunts for the hetu, the root cause.
He bypasses the noise.
We see this brilliantly applied in the stealing coworker dilemma.
Oh, this is a classic moral trap.
Yeah. So you discover a coworker is embezzling from the company, but you learn they are doing it solely to pay for their mother's life-saving medical treatment.
Right, high stakes.
Very. If you report the theft, your coworker goes to prison and the mother likely dies. If you don't report it, you are complicit in a crime and the company suffers financial damage.
Most people freeze here because they get trapped in the binary of the surface level action, reporting versus not reporting.
Right.
But War bypasses the theft entirely and looks for the hetu. The root cause of the bad code isn't a malicious employee. It is the financial desperation caused by the mother's illness.
So his solution is this really elegant manipulation of the variable.
Exactly. He advises going to the company leadership, explaining the mother's critical illness, and proposing that the company officially sponsor her medical treatment.
He turns a criminal embezzlement crisis into a public relations win for the corporation.
Win-win.
By resolving the hetu, the need for medical funding, the symptom of theft automatically disappears.
He changes the inputs to rewrite the output, and the sources actually push this logic to its absolute limit with a highly controversial thought experiment.
Oh, the baby Hitler dilemma?
Yes. The age-old question: if you had access to a time machine, do you go back and kill infant Hitler to prevent the atrocities of World War II?
And War says no.
He says no.
Hold on. Reframing a corporate theft to save a mother is one thing, but we are talking about historical atrocities. Isn't War's logic dangerously naive, perhaps even morally irresponsible when applied to real-world, systemic evil?
From a conventional moral standpoint, it sounds absurd. I agree.
Yeah.
But War is remaining strictly obedient to the system architecture. To him, an infant hasn't generated the bad code yet.
Okay.
Killing the infant is addressing a symptom that hasn't even manifested. War argues that you use the time machine to identify the head to, the specific environmental trauma, the rejections, the abuses that warped his developing mind.
Oh, I see.
You systematically alter the conditions of his upbringing to shape those same leadership qualities toward a positive outcome.
Change the input, change the output, no matter the scale of the system.
Precisely.
But this raises a massive, deeply uncomfortable question.
Which is,
If everything from our social interactions to the cosmos itself is just a giant, unbreakable sequence of inputs and outputs, where is our free will? Are we just executing lines of code that were written long before we got here?
this is where War introduces his philosophy of the observer.
The observer.
Yes.
Yeah.
He holds a core belief, which he phrases as the sky is yourself. War asserts that our consciousness, the part of us he calls the observer, actually wrote the script of our lives before we were even born.
So we are the developers who wrote the software, but we've placed ourselves inside the simulation to experience the program running in real time.
Exactly. He views every challenge, the bankruptcies, the toxic exes, the petty coworkers, as rigorous system testing that we deliberately designed to stress test our own code and facilitate our growth.
The sources throw some existential curveballs to see if this theory holds up under pressure.
They do.
They ask him about simulation theory. If science definitively proved tomorrow that our entire universe is just a computer simulation, how should humanity react?
And War's answer is just a shrug.
Literally a shrug.
He says, so what? Play your role.
Because intellectually understanding that the system is simulated doesn't alter the immediate subjective reality of your experience within it.
Right. The code is still running. You still feel hunger. You still navigate grief. You still have to pay rent. The simulation is your reality.
They also ask him about the transfer of consciousness. Like, if your mind is completely downloaded into a robotic body, is it still genuinely you or just a digital clone?
And War argues that it is unequivocally you.
Right. The hardware has changed from biological to mechanical, but the consciousness, the observer, has successfully transferred.
He argues that our accumulated memories aren't the core of our identity. The mechanism of our thought process is.
The software remains intact regardless of the casing.
Exactly.
I have to be honest, though, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The deeper we go into this framework, the more War sounds like a highly efficient sociopath.
I can see why you'd say that.
Right. He views a dying universe with a shrug, he equates human consciousness to a software port, and he treats immense human suffering like an optimization problem. It all feels incredibly detached.
You would absolutely think so based on the strict parameters of his logic.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where the final scenario in the sources completely flips the script.
Okay.
We have to look at how this detached dimension architect handles the terminal illness scenario.
This one is heavy. So a dying relative is lying in a hospital bed. The doctors have definitively stated that there is zero medical hope. Their body is failing. The relative grabs your hand, looks you in the eye, and asks, is there still hope? I just want to live to see my grandchildren grow up.
Now, if War is simply a cold logician, his answer is obvious.
Right. The factual diagnostic truth is no, the system is shutting down. Prepare for the end.
But that isn't what War does at all.
Yeah.
He chooses profound compassion over cold medical data.
What does he do?
He instructs you to look them in the eye and say yes.
Yeah.
Tell them that medical science advances every single day and there's always hope. But then, and this is where his system architecture becomes beautiful, he says you immediately call the family and bring the grandchildren into that hospital room right now.
He uses his mastery of the system to manipulate the timeline.
It's an incredible paradox. He uses the cold, detached logic of cause and effect to achieve the warmest, most profoundly human outcome imaginable.
Because he understands that the dying relative doesn't actually need a medical miracle. Their true hetu, their root desire, is simply to experience the joy of their grandchildren.
He fulfills their deepest wish in the immediate present. While he accepts that the grand system of causality is absolute and unavoidable, he knows our human experience of it is entirely subjective.
Right.
By bringing the grandchildren into the room, he forcefully creates a new athy, a new presence, that completely overrides the despair of the diagnosis.
He forces the present moment to become the ultimate reality. Man, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started with the practical application of system architecture, learning how to return error codes to toxic bosses and freebie seekers without absorbing their emotional baggage.
And we scaled that up to internal diagnostics, learning to view our 6-month failures and identity crises not as permanent crashes, but as vital data gathering for our next internal upgrade.
And we traced the bedrock of that logic all the way down to the ancient Mahabharata, understanding that from corporate embezzlement to the trajectory of historical dictators, everything is bound by the unbreakable code of causes and conditions.
The overarching lesson from these sources is clear. Whether you are consulting a 2,500-year-old Buddhist scripture or a senior full-stack developer, the mandate is the same.
Stop agonizing over the superficial symptoms.
Right. Stop getting derailed by the emotional error messages popping up on your screen. Look deeper. Find your root causes. Manage your inputs.
Before we close out this deep dive, there is one final, lingering concept hidden in Word's profile that completely reframes everything we've discussed today.
Oh, what's that?
It's a well-known psychological principle called the IKEA effect. It states that human beings place a disproportionately high value on things they assemble themselves. We cherish the slightly crooked bookshelf far more than the perfect store-bought one, simply because we suffered through the frustration of building it.
That's a great point.
So if Word's philosophy holds true, if life really is just a grand, complex system of causes and effects, and you are the observer who consciously authored your own script before you arrived, and if our human psychology dictates that we only truly extract value and meaning from the things we struggle to construct,
I see where you're going with this.
are the hardest, most frustrating, most painful bugs in your life actually the exact features you purposefully coded in, just to give your existence meaning? The next time your life throws an error code, don't panic. Ask yourself, what exactly did you design this failure to teach you how to build?